Okay, now we're going to reassemble the Smith & Wesson 4506. It's been cleaned, it's been degreased with spray 9, it's been wiped clean, it's been soaked and cleaned with break-free lubricant and protectant, which is almost impossible to find in Canada. So I got a friend of mine to get it for me in the States and ship it to me. So now it's all nice and clean, lubed up, and now for reassembly. So first, we have a few punches and things ready here that we're going to need. We are going to install, another thing to mention is you should always check your springs. I've had several broken springs in these guns, a broken hammer spring, broken drawbar spring. Sometimes you'll find a broken firing pin spring. I've gotten spring kits, rebuild kits from Wolf Springs, which are pretty good. So I have replaced a few springs here. So first we'll install this drawbar plunger and spring. Then we're going to install the trigger bar here, and these little springs here, they can come loose. When they come loose and they lose their tension, you can get a little bit of play in the trigger, like a little. So you can either replace these or you can just bend them forward and bring the tension back into them. So you slide that in here, and it should line up with that drawbar there. And you can push that in, hold it in, and you get your trigger. Actually, pardon me, I should have put the trigger in first. Drop the trigger in first. It'll just sit down there. Then the drawbar plunger. Then the trigger bar. And then we push that in. We line this up. Trigger up in there. I'm gonna hold it in there. Line up the holes so you can see through it, and then we'll get our trigger pin. Get that started. And kind of wiggle it as you push it in. It doesn't hurt to get a punch on the other side to line it up a bit as well. Get her lined up. Then you can lightly tap it in with the back end of a punch. Kind of wiggle it as you do it. Be a little stubborn. Just getting it lined up straight. And sometimes she just doesn't want to be friendly. There we are. And everything is in line as it should be. Okay, now what's next? Now we are going to put our little springs in here. And we're going to put drop this back in. From the bottom. Turn it slightly to the side to get it above a little lip there. Get it up. So now the spring's in, that is in. And then we can put, we have to put these guys back in. And this is slightly difficult. They all have to line up, including the hammer and the sear. Could be a little difficult. Drop the hammer in. And try and get all these lined up. And you can use a punch to hold things in place from one side. Easier to start with a small punch first. Get them all in line here. Make sure everything's in place. Everything looks good with a small punch. Remove it. Get everything lined up with a big punch. Everything's in. And this guy fell out. Let's put him back in. So he's back in place. Everything's in place there. Now the sear. So sear comes in like so, and it rests against the sear spring in the back, and then there's a hole here. I like to get it lined up with a small punch. So now everything's in place on this end. The sear with a punch, these guys here, the hammer, everything's in place. Now the tricky part is I'm going to put this, the small one here slides on and off, so it's got a little groove in it, so you put it in there. The small one goes where the sear is and the big one goes where the big punch is, so this can be a little bit tricky. So you want to, at the same time you're pulling the punch back, you want to get these guys in as well. Like I say, a little bit tricky. Get them both lined up, and then just them back as best you can. Ah, shit. Like I said, it can be a little tricky. Come on, get in there. I'd say this here is probably the hardest part of this whole takedown. There we go. Get that all lined up. And I lost one of these guys. Just gotta go back in. Lined up. Should just go in. I don't know why that's being so difficult. Here we are. Everything's lined up. All these guys are intact. That's all in. So what's left from here, essentially, is the hammer spring, and the cap, and then the grip goes back on. So this just sits in a little notch in the grip. Line that up. Spread the grip a bit. Line that up in there. in there nice. And put your grip pin back through it. Grip pin back in. And we are functional. Now next will be the slide assembly.